My name is NonStopAntonio, and I've been watching and reacting to Black Clover for the very first time, and I just finished the dungeon exploration arc. This arc was interesting, and I really like the concepts it set up, so let's jump into my discussion, review, and recap for the arc. Welcome to NonStopAntonio, where I talk about everything nerdy. I love Marvel, DC, and anime, and if you do too, I hope you enjoy this video. This arc was short and sweet. It introduced some cool concepts and added some interesting stuff to this magical world. I really like learning more about this magical world because it keeps adding new stuff that I wasn't expecting. Like how the dungeons just appear out of nowhere, but they're filled with magical loot, which could change civilization because of how powerful these items were. It's cool that they have the traps within them. I like when Asta and them are going through it at first, and Luck just kept activating them because Asta could just negate them and keep going through. And then when Yuno had the badass moment where he saved Asta and Noelle from that plant, that was pretty cool. I like that beginning of it, just introducing us to the dungeon and what's in it. The one thing I don't think they did explain, though, is where these dungeons come from, but I'm curious to see if they eventually do. This can't be the last time we see dungeons, right? I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If we don't see dungeons anymore, just let me know. Also, extra user pointed out in the comments that people like Luck with the lightning magic have a very high mana sensitivity because of the magic attributes, and with that, some magic types are just better at sensing stuff, and I think that's interesting how different magic types have unique attributes to them, and I really like learning more about it. Now, the fact that this arc had Yuno and Asta's squads working together was a lot of fun because of how Asta and Klaus just kept getting in each other's faces, and I really like how they would argue. And because Klaus just thinks he's all high and mighty as a noble, and you have Asta who just doesn't care. He's like, just treat people normally. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you being such a dick? And I just love how they just kept getting each other's faces because it was a lot of fun. And I really like how this arc developed Klaus as a character too, because in the final episodes, you could see he realizes how strong an Asta are. These mere peasants are stronger than him. They're freaking strong as shit. And he finally warms up to them and apologizes for being such an ass and sees them as magic knights. Like, I really like that because it shows that he's learned from these peasants, that these people who shouldn't be stronger than him are stronger than him, but also that they should be respected in the same way. Seeming like Asta and Yuno has helped Klaus open his eyes that peasants aren't just like these dirty people in the dirt, that they're just people like him, and they should be respected the same way. And speaking of the characters, I love the Asta and Yuno rivalry during all of this. It's just a lot of like wholesome fun with both of them trying to be Wizard King, but also being family and protecting one another, but also and wanting to be stronger. Where I still think, my theory anyways, please don't spoil it, is that Asta and Yuno both want to strive to become Wizard King, where only one of them will be, but there will be another tier next to Wizard King that where both of them will reach to, unless something bad happens and Yuno dies, because I think the show is mostly focused on Asta. Their bond is great, and I cannot wait to see it progress as this anime continues, because I love how during the major fights, both of them, because of their experience growing up as being orphans and considering each other family, they both see all their friends as family, and they'll do anything to protect them, which I think it was a fantastic moment during this arc, showing that even though Klaus is kind of a pain in the ass, Yuno still considers him a friend and will help him. And the whole part where they say friends are family was probably one of my favorite moments from this arc, just because it was so touching to see these characters who only known each other for so long consider their friends to be their family because they never had blood family. In addition, it was great to learn more about each character, especially Luck, because we're learning more and more about the Black Bulls as we progress. Like we've learned a little bit about Magnus last arc, where he came from and how he got taught at that town and how he had his mentor, and now we're learning more about Luck and where he came from because he was just a mere peasant as well, except his backstory is a little bit more twisted than Magnus. To be fair, they are just commoners, so they weren't really able to do anything. They were on the low end of the totem pole, and it was pretty sad. However, when his mother found out that he had all this power, his mother told him to keep winning. No one's ever going to help him, which I thought was really interesting, and that way they could have got a better life. And Ashley Penn introduced this theory to me in the comments that Luck accidentally fried his own brain because of his powers. Because they're electrical based, it's kind of like electrical shock to the brain, which the trauma can cause psychotic tendencies, which I could totally see because Luck is always very, very crazy. He always wants to fight. It's going to be interesting seeing his character change as well, because I feel like after Asta said that he's his friend, it's gonna change him a bit because he felt like he was always alone, and now he might not feel alone all the time. And Ashley Pound also pointed out Luck's mother did her best to raise him. However, when he got his powers, she saw it as a ticket to a better life because of how strong he is, and then he saw it as she only loved him because he was winning. So kind of twisting this childhood trauma where if he doesn't win, he doesn't think his mom loves him, which I think is really freaking dark, and it's just so much trauma overall with Luck's character. Now let's talk about the fights, because the first fight with Lotus of the Abyss was cool, and it was interesting because it made it seem like he wasn't all evil while he's talking to Luck, because he's just like a guy, he's just a soldier working for his country, and he's just doing the best he can. But he also seems like he doesn't want to fight. Like, he's like, I don't really want to fight you, I just want to live, and stuff like that. Like, it seemed really interesting because he only went there to loot the dungeon, just like how the Black Bulls and the Golden Dawn did, Lotus and Mars did as well. However, they just had to be ready to fight any opposing enemies who ended up being there. And I thought Luck fighting him was interesting because it showed how strong Luck is and how he uses powers. I like how he makes his like lightning boots and gauntlets to fight. It looked really cool and also upped his speed. And I'm probably going to say this throughout the series, but it's cool to see unique ways of them using their powers. And I feel like we only scratched the surface for what Luck could do, because we're only in the first 19 episodes of the series. There's still so many more to go. And Lotus's powers are really cool as well because he uses smoke, which is different, and I like how the smoke can affect, because it's like an area of effect type of move where it can fill the room, make you slow down. So just a new magic type that makes it different. But I love how Asta and Noelle come to help Luck and save his ass, and I really like that moment when he comes in to help, because Luck's like, no, I'm gonna do this alone, but Asta's like, no, you won't. I'm here to help, and you're not telling me to go away. And I also just love how they strategize during this, because Asta is always a secret weapon because he has no magic pouring out of him. So it looks like he's nothing and no one can detect him. And I love how they use Asta to shoot him towards the Lotus, and because Lotus can't sense him, he just gets slapped into the wall. And I will continue to look forward to seeing how they use Asta to their advantage because of how he can negate magic. Especially after the fight with Mars, where they introduced some new cool stuff, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But speaking of Mars, that whole interaction when we first got introduced to him was really shocking because he freaking just blasted Mimosa. I felt like they weren't gonna kill her right there and then, but it was just such a dark moment because she just got wrecked right off the bat. And lucky she can heal herself, and I thought it was cool learning more about her nature magic, how she's like gonna be this powerful healer because she has some of the strongest healing magic in the kingdom. And I like the way she uses it too, because it's kind of like this grass that pops up. It looks really interesting. Like, all the visual effects when it comes to different powers always looked really cool because everyone uses it in a different way because they're a different person. Their style is always more unique. But Mimosa also just seems like a general sweetheart. I really like her character. She seems so nice. However, I also did not expect there to be depth to Mars as a character. I thought he was just like a killing machine because when he was fighting Yuno, he just seemed very robotic and evil and just wanted to destroy everything. I love how Asta came in at the end, saves Yuno, fights by himself, and is able just to slap Mars across the room with no problem, which seemed too good to be true. But I loved how it showed that Mars wants to destroy when Asta wants to protect, so kind of showing the conflicting sides to one another. And I thought it was interesting when Mars woke back up that he had two element types, because I didn't think that they could only use one. I thought people could use two if they were strong enough. And when I did see the stitched grimoire, I figured that it was stitched together, because I thought that was kind of weird why his looked different from everyone else's, because it had two different styles to it. And I like that Klaus explained what was going on, because I didn't know this, and I love getting the explainer that most people have only one of the four elements. You got fire, wind, water, and earth, and each attribute derives from one of them. So people can usually control stuff in within that one element, but not multiple. I thought it was just depending on the user's strength. They could use different types, but it makes more sense that it is pure attribute. But I do feel like in the future, this is my theory, don't spoil it for me, that we will get to see other people using other magical types like this. They've been upgraded or they've done something to make them more powerful. I loved when Noelle almost got killed by Mars when he woke back up, that it sends Asta into a full rage. I really like how that shows that Asta will defend his friends at all costs, showing his determination. And that second fight with Mars was really cool because it introduced a new power for Asta, showing that he can use other people's magic with this sword he picked up, which originally I thought that sword was the same one he'd been using the entire time and it just changed for the fight. However, afterwards I realized that it was already in the room. That's what Nero was trying to get him to go towards, not a magic stone. It was this new sword, because when he goes back into the grimoire later, it puts the writing in the grimoire, so now he has two swords, which again, I didn't realize that's what it was. I thought it was just his one that negated got a new ability, which is really cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing him get new swords now, because I thought he was just going to get more upgrades, but instead he's going to collect swords. But I like how during that section 2, it led into a great moment where Asta's about to die, and Yuno unlocks a new power as well, and he comes in for the save. Because when Yuno was going to look at that scroll during their time exploring the vault, I knew when he looked at that scroll and the grimoire lit up, it was giving him a new power. I didn't know what that power was, but I knew it was giving him a new power. And I like how when it gets unlocked, we see like this fairy or this spirit like blow a kiss and it launches Mars into the wall. It was cool to see both Asta and Yuno get two power upgrades during this arc. And I know this isn't the last time we're going to see them get power upgrades, so I'm looking forward to seeing as it progresses through the story. And I love when the dungeon was falling apart, how Asta turned around and said, save Mars. Even though Mars tried to kill them, they came to loot the dungeon, not kill. So I thought that was a really great moment for his character, showing that he's not just going to let someone to die, because they never actually came to kill him. This wasn't supposed to be like this fight. It was just them coming to check out the dungeon and making sure that they could get any magical items for their kingdom. So there's no point just letting this guy die. Now let's talk about the depth that I was talking about earlier for Mars, because I wanted to talk more about the fight first before diving into it, because it was split in between those fights. Because I thought Mars' backstory was really interesting, because I originally thought that he was betrayed by his friend. The way they showed Fauna saying, "I'm sorry," and attacking him, and I thought that was the moment he snapped and became more evil because his friend betrayed him. However, it turns out that these kids were all being trained to become the strongest weapon, and then they all had to fight to the last one standing. So he had to fight his friend, which was very sad, and she turned around and got herself killed so that he could live on and live for her. But he snapped in a different way then, where instead of his friend betraying him, he snapped because he killed his friend because he had to. It shows what the Diamond Kingdom is willing to do to make a strong warrior, because then they infuse him with those stones to make him even stronger. And I'm guessing they're the ones that stitched the two grimoires together, unless he was the one that did that. Because it's her grimoire that stitched to his, which was a cool moment to realize what was going on. But also, I do not understand why the Diamond Kingdom killed all these possible strong warriors just to have one OP one. Wouldn't it make more sense to have like a couple last man standing ones so that you'd have multiple strong characters rather than just one? I also thought it was really interesting for his character at the very end, because it turns out the Lotus saved him. He says he remembers everything, which makes me think that after he got the magic stones put in his head and got upgraded, he lost his memories, and until everything happened with Asta and Yuno, he couldn't remember his past. But now he does, and I feel like it's going to make him more human now rather than being so robotic and evil. And it also indicates that his emotions are coming back, because he thanks the Lotus for saving him, and the Lotus says, "You can actually say those words," meaning he's never said anything like that before, maybe, and also indicating that he was more like robotic and just emotionless, and I think that's all coming back now. So I'm very intrigued to see where he comes back, because he may have lost himself when he became a weapon, but now he's going to become human again. Now, because the arc is over, let's talk about my overall thoughts on it. I think this arc was really interesting, showing us the dungeon and the concepts within it, giving our characters some pretty cool power upgrades as well, and also just developing characters and giving us backstory to make us understand them a lot more. Luck with his mother, Mars with his sad, depressing backstory, seeing that Mimosa is inspired by Noelle because of her determination, Asta and Yuno having great moments protecting one another and also protecting their friends, Klaus realizing that Asta and Yuno are great magic knights and not just peasants. This was just great moments for this arc. But even though this arc was short, it still had some great moments and progressed our characters, and I cannot wait to see what happens next in the next arc. Now with the dungeon exploration arc over, we're going to be jumping into the Royal Capital Assault arc, which I'm assuming is going to be filled with fighting. And I'm thinking that the Diamond Kingdom is going to be going after him, especially after the dungeon arc, or we're going to get a new kingdom trying to take down the Clover one. I'm interested to seeing what happens, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing more of the Black Bulls and seeing some of the powers from the ones we haven't seen yet, and especially seeing Yami fight because of how strong he looks, and also seeing more of the other Magical Knight squads. I can't wait to see what happens next, and I'm looking forward to watching more Black Clover episodes. If you like my discussion, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because I will be doing discussions for every arc and I'll be reacting to every episode of the series. I also have Naruto discussions I've been doing, and by the time this video goes up, at least one tuning exam video should be out. So you can find all my other anime videos in the description down below, and you can also check out my first ever anime series where I've been discussing animes as I watch them for the very first time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.